request here today. It's a dual request. It's video game related, so it's going to be a video game. I'm going to have it listed as a video games ramble, but I will be talking about some underrated games. I grabbed 5 games that I feel are underrated, or maybe not looked at enough, and then some game recommendations for the Switch and the PS4. So if you guys like, this kind of video, talking about underrated games, talking about game recommendations, leave me a like, throw me a comment. I could do more of them. But anytime I'm getting requests related to video games, I'm always happy to talk about video games. But I'll start with the underrated games first. Like I said, this is what I feel are underrated games. I got 2 original Xbox games, a Wii game, and 2 360 games. First one is Gladius. I've talked about this game a lot in the past. This was on the Xbox, the PS2, and the GameCube. GameCube actually got this one too. It is a grid-based strategy game. So when you're on the battlefield, there's squares, and you can only go a certain amount. You use Ursula or Valens. It takes place in, I guess it'd be Roman times. Gladiator type stuff. That's what it is. So you start. They're right here. That's Ursula. That's Valens. Valens is the one on the front as well. But I clear my throat there. You can use either one to start. Eventually, they'll meet up. Ursula has a brother with her, and Valens has, I forget the guy's best friend. I won't spoil that there. Him and his best friend. This stuff happens later on in the game. I forget his name though. Does it have his name? No. You start out in a gladiator school. If you use Valens, if you use Ursula, it's the same thing, but they're like the barbarians. I guess, right? And they'll doing the same thing. It's just not in like arenas, And but either way, you're doing the same stuff, and you're starting out. And there's an overworld where you run around. It's actually kind of cool. You run the different schools. You got to get badges in each school, do certain requirements. I forget like the main story, what it was. But it's really cool, and the music's really good. I actually listen to the battle music sometimes. And I think it was about this game is when you're in the arenas. I think it's like licenses and badge you gotta get. You can recruit people to your group. Everybody levels up, but if they're not in your battle at the time, I think they might get a little experience, but I'm not sure. So you kind of want to use everybody. I screwed myself when I was playing this. I was like 60 hours in, and I got to a part where I had to use Valens, and it might have been Ursula as well, or somebody else who I wasn't leveling up enough, and I kept getting my ass kicked. I was like, because I wasn't focusing on the main characters as much because I had those people I recruited from the towns or whatever in the arenas. I beefed them up. You have ranged attacks, heavy guys or girls. Like Ursula and Valens are kind of more of a medium, I guess. If you're like looking at light, medium, heavy, and they're like the medium. The ranged people are the light, and the heavy are usually actually thief. I think they're not thieves. I don't know what they call them. They're good at like getting, but you can get behind. They do more damage when they're behind you. I forget what they're called. They all have 16 different classes there are of people, but they all have different attributes and things they can do better and more damage for some. Some can move more and stuff like that. there are like special attacks you get when you build up your, I think it's your affinity meter. I think it's the affinity gods in this game. And then you can do like dual attacks. You can do, different kind of ones that use different amounts of stuff and stuff like that. Oh, I was saying, your guys will live. They'll get knocked out if you lose in the arena. But if you get into fights in the open world, those characters, the ones you recruit, if the main one dies, it's game over. But the ones you recruit will die and they'll be gone. And it kind of sucks if you get them up pretty high. I know some games do this. It's a nice kind of added thing. But you got to be smart because you could lose them out there in the open world. It's really cool. It's a long game. It's just, if you're into strategy games, you like it. Sometimes you get the high ground on people and stuff like that. You're fighting other gladiators, other barbarians, animals. This, I think, like kind of people like, you call them wizards and witches, I guess. But I think there's some like special attacks like that some characters do. But it's a really cool game. I would check it out if it's not overly expensive. This is not my original copy by far. I've had this game. I think I had it on the Cube at one point. I had it on the Xbox. Then I had it on the Xbox again. No, I had it on the PS2. That was actually a deal I got from Craigslist. I remember taking the train to Merrick and meeting this guy. It was 5 games for $5. And Gladius was one of them. I think Manhunt was in there too. I was like, oh yes, this is available. Like, I would get on the train. One of the few times I used Craigslist for that kind of stuff. That was actually a good 5 games, and this had to have been like 2013 or 14. So these games weren't as valuable as they are now. Not that they're like extremely valuable now, but anyway. If you're into turn-based strategy games on the grid and stuff like that, you're gonna love this game. It really is nice. If you're like into the gladiatorial stuff as well, you'll be into it. Yeah, you can wield powerful magic and you get different weapons and stuff. You're upgrading guys and buying new stuff in the usual. Recruit, train, and run a customized school. Yeah, I think you can actually train them. And there's a training thing you can do. I forget how it works. But, no, there is multiplayer apparently. I never played that. But definitely check this game out if you have one of the systems from that generation outside of the Dreamcast. It did not come. This game came out after the Dreamcast was done. Second game, here's another Xbox game. The Haunted Mansion. I picked this up a couple of years ago. It was like 2 years ago. I remember watching Luke Moore's one. And he did a gameplay of this. I was like, this game looks kind of cool. And I picked it up at one of the retro stores. It was pretty cheap. It was like $8 or $9. But it is cool. And it came with a free movie pass that probably would have expired 12/15/03. It's the same kind of thing as the game. It's funny, I saw that other one, the second Haunted Mansion movie, not the one. This is the one that came out when the one with Eddie Murphy came out. But I remember things from the movie that I saw the movie. I was like, oh, that was in the game. It's a cool game with a lot of, I think you have to get a certain amount of spirits to get to different rooms. I haven't played it in a bit. In like well over a year. But there's like unique things you can do in the boss battles and stuff. Like one you have to like, I don't know if you had like light little fires to get to where the guy was going. There was interesting little mechanics in the gameplay things in the boss fights. You gotta release the 999 trap souls before becoming one. There are puzzles. It actually looks pretty good. I have not completed it, but I've played enough of it to know that. Granted, when this came out originally, this game wouldn't have been on my radar. Not to say I wouldn't have enjoyed it then, but it's really cool. Like I said, it still looks pretty good. Decent variety of enemies. I think you catch the souls in his lantern. He has like a lantern. I think after shit happens, you take him in. I forget where you save them. But it's actually really cool. This is another one I'd check out if you're kind of into mellower horror-related games. It's actually really cool. Check it out. This is a Wii game. It's also on the PS2. It might have been. It was definitely on the PSP. I think it might have actually been on the DS as well. That one would probably been completely different though. It's Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. This game didn't review that well. It didn't. It wasn't like. I don't think it was like a 2 out of 10, but I feel like this game is in the 6, maybe in the 5. I'm talking about the Wii one because it's the one I have, and this game's pretty cool. Like, it makes good use of the Wii remote. You know, with his whip and stuff like that. Once you get used to the controls, it's actually fairly easy to control. You're getting a lot of fist fights and stuff, similar to Emperor's Tomb. That came out around the same time. When did this actually come out? Oh wow! This would have come out in 2009. Wow, really? Is that right? Yeah. It's indie. You're finding treasures. You're freaking going to different places. Like I said, the main reason I say it's underrated because I don't think anybody really cared about this game when it came out. Like I said, the reviews weren't great. I think it was a little bit harsh on it. I think I got this is the first time I owned it. I forget when I got this. It might have been like 2015. It was like $2 at GameStop. Like I said, it does when a game on the Wii makes good use of the motion controls, especially when you combine because you're using the Wii remote and the nunchuck. When they do it right, it's done well, and I think this game does it good, well enough at least. Like I said, you get into fist fights and stuff. You're finding shit. You're going to different locations. It's worth checking out because I don't think this game's that expensive either. I think it's up from $2 that it was, but it can't be more than $15 on any of the systems. Yes, you can use your environment. I've seen this in the back. There'll be like a certain thing would light up. You throw your whip at it, pull down stuff, knock stuff over, and shit like that lands on enemies. It's a really cool game, though. Next 2 or 360 games. One you saw gameplay of recently. Now this one's kind of a weird pick in a way because it was a platinum hit. It is Condemned Criminal Origins. I put this more in the underrated survival horror game because you don't hear this talked about in even the second one as well. Like you do with Silent Hill, even though it's more Silent Hill, there's more fatal frames and Resident Evil's obviously. In reality, like in terms of creepiness, it's on the level. It's creepier than the Resident Evils, and it's on pace with some of the fatal frames and Silent Hills. And you know, those are the 3, kind of big ones that I'm talking about back then. It's creepier than like the Dead Space games. I don't find the Dead Space games necessarily creepy. I think they're awesome games, and I think their environments are great. But that's the thing with survival horror games. Some might think this is not creepy at all, and I think it is. And I think Dead Space isn't. And someone's like, "What are you talking about?" But I think for a horror game, you don't hear a lot about it, and it really should be talked about because it's legitimately creepy. If you saw the gameplay, it's poorly lit. You just have your flashlight. There's guys coming at you. It's brutal hand-to-hand combat. You got to use whatever the environment has: a pipe, a freaking 2x4, a crowbar, bent rebar, conduit, whatever. You can find guns, but you're never going to have a ton of ammo. So you got to be smart with them. And graphically, it looks okay. This was a launch title for the 360. I don't understand why they just did not have a spine for these platinum hits. That's just, ugh. Honestly, overall, in my opinion, the platinum hits looked a lot better on the original Xbox than they did on 360. Graphically, it has that weird plasticky shininess to it that a lot of those early 360 games had. They look almost like, some of the people look almost like fake mannequins, and there are mannequins. There's actually creepy mannequins in a department store. There's a lot of variation. You end up in a school, department store, you're in the gameplay you saw, you're like in an office building. The final fight is actually in a house, which is kind of interesting. Like, It's just you're fighting the final boss in like an abandoned house. Like it's not like the typical like over the top survival horror battle. It's just like you're in a house chasing guys, chasing you, he's chasing you, you're chasing him. They actually hit on the supernatural shit actually early in this. You wouldn't realize it at first when first playing the game. The second one expands upon it. He has like this mouth power. He's like, it's almost like a shout before Skyrim. It doesn't take away from the game too much, but they go a little deep into it in the second game. The second game's legitimately creepy too. This one's creepier. I like this one better. The second game has the bear scene with the rabid bear, which is awesome. But it's cool. You saw it in the video. You got the forensic stuff you can use. They expand upon that in the second one, so it's more in depth and stuff. You're taking pictures and stuff like that. You gotta line stuff up, get a fingerprint or whatever. So you have that element as well. So it's like you're an FBI agent, so it's like that FBI detective type game on top of a fucking horror game, and it's really cool. Like I said, the environments are good. I didn't have the sound on, but when you have the sound on, when you're playing it, when I'm talking about the gameplay, like you're hearing the people in the story is spoilers. You should find this out in the second game. I'm pretty sure they don't talk about it in this one. That the guy put like these things around the towns that were sending out these like signals that messing up people's brains, and they start going nuts. Like a lot of homeless people, and that's who's attacking vagrants and stuff. And they were like, this buzzing was in their ear, and they start losing it. But they're knocking stuff around. You hear them, but you don't know where they're coming from and stuff. It's a really good game. It's a creepy game. It still holds up in terms of gameplay. It's not as impactful as it was when it came out, but it's still good. And there's collectibles, obviously, you saw and stuff. Check this game out if you're into horror games. And the second one as well, it's Condemned 2 Bloodshot. Unfortunately, that one's not backwards compatible, which is kind of annoying. I don't think it is. And the next game is Stuntman Ignition. I've talked about this a lot. I love the Stuntman games. This was one of my early titles that I had on the. This came out 2007. Yes. When I got my PS3, this is one of the earlier games I had. And it was cool. It's a trial and error game. You're a stuntman. You do movie scenes in different types of vehicles, cars, trucks, motorcycles, shit like that. And you have to do what the director tells you to. So it's like you have to overtake another car. You have to hit a box. Cue action, which causes something to happen in the environment. Do 180s, 360 turns. You gotta brake quick, reverse, bump cars, stuff like that. And you're on a time limit. And if you get too many X's, actually no, you can take your time. I think it plays against your final score. If you get too many mess ups, the scene ends. It's the kind of game where you're busting ass. You're like, nope, not good enough. Retry. Similar to like a Tony Hawk. And this game will piss you off. These games will absolutely piss you off. And they're little parodies of other. They're all parodies of other movies. I think this one has a. Oh, I forget what they're called. Let's see. I know the names of the first one. The first game. One more. Let's see if it has. I know there's a whooping and a hollering too. In this one, that's like a Dukes of Hazzard type parody. I think this one has Night Avenger, which is a Batman parody. There's one that's like it's like an action movie parody. What is it called? I forget. There's another detective type 70s like detective parody in there. I don't know if there's a Bond one in this one as well. Actually, I think there is. Live Twice for Tomorrow is in the first one. But it's a cool game. This had multiplayer as well. But it's just a cool, fun game that's going to piss you off. But when you get it down and you're ripping up those scenes, it's a really good feeling. It's not overly long, but it has replay value because you want to beat your top scores. And you have to, I think you have to get a certain amount of stars to get to the next movie. As well. And you got the stuntman barking bullshit in your ear in the beginning. And depending on how you did, he'll act a certain way. It's a really cool game, though. Check it out. Alright, those are the underrated games. Like I said, if you guys like this, let me know, and I can do more. But I said, when I get requests talking about video games, I like to do it. But I also got someone else asked me about some recommendations for the Switch and the PS4. I'll do the PS4 stuff first. I think all these games are playable on the PS5 as well, so maybe they aren't. I don't know. The first one is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now this is coming. I'm recommending this because it's coming from someone who only played very little of the original. I didn't touch it when it came out because I didn't have a PlayStation. I played it I think the first time I played this was actually I downloaded it when I had the PS3 off their store. It was $10. All the other games, PlayStation games, are $5. This one was $10. I played some of it there. It was cool, but I wanted something else. But this is a full-blown remake. This is the part 1. The second part comes out in February. It's also a 2-disc jammy as well. Huge cutscenes. It's a really cool game. They redid the combat system, so it's not turn-based anymore. You're actually running around the battlefield. Looks really nice. There's a lot of, the second part of the game is when you're in the open world. But this one, you're all inside the, I don't know what the fuck it's called. Where you are. It's very environmental. Is it Shinra Corporation's doing all this fucked up shit to drilling into the earth or some crap? And they're not good for the earth. And your Cloud, who is an ex-soldier. And then there's other people in the party. There's Tifa, Aerith. Oh god, they gotta have him in here. This did not have a manual. Wow. I actually went in here looking for a manual. Duh, they don't make him anymore. God forbid. I forget this guy's name. He's got the machine gun for the arm. I can't remember his name. Is those four? Is there anybody else? I'm trying to remember. I haven't put this in a while. I need to beat this because I'm towards the end. There's some mini games in there as well, which I guess we're in. Like I said, I don't know enough about the original to know what they added new. I'm not talking about the new combat system and it just looking a lot better. I don't know if they added mini games and stuff like that. You can find CDs or buy them. Put them in the jukebox, I think, in the guy's bar or Tifa's bar. But it's cool. It's a pretty cool story. The combat's fun. I was playing the hell out of this when I had it, and then I just stopped. I'm inside the corporate building, and I stopped for some reason because that's what I do with games these days. Midgar, that's the name of the place. It's really cool. I'm recommending this because if you have not played it, or anyone hasn't played it, check it out. You probably have, but you never know. Next one is Until Dawn, made by the same people who make the Dark Pictures games, and they did The Quarry and that Hidden Agenda, which I still have not played. This has Rami Malek in it, and Hayden Panettiere. But it's almost like a point and click horror game, and you're making choices here. If you mess up some choices, or you miss some, this game's a lot about button pressing. You mess up a button press, a lot of times you're fucked, and the characters die, they're done. So you get certain trophies or achievements based on how many people survived and how many didn't. So you can play it different ways and do different paths and do different dialogue options. They do a good job in these games of making you kind of hate some of the people early on, and then you grow to like them as their kind of characters grow. Although the one girl in this she was coming around, and then at the end of the game she lived, and she said something fucked up about one of the people who died. It might be like a boyfriend or something. It was fucked up. But this one takes place on a mountain. The guy's cute. His family's like a lodge. There's a killer on the loose. You find out what happened. There's supernatural stuff in here as well. And there's always a prologue thing. You use Rami Malek's character's sisters in the prologue. And the friends all come back because they die, spoilers, and they all come back the next year or 2 years later, whatever it is. And shit starts happening. Like I said, you gotta do certain button presses, you gotta make certain choices, go this way and stuff. But this game still looks really nice too, actually. And this was an older game, 2015. And you could find stuff here as well. You're finding out more bits and pieces about story as well through the stuff you find. This also has the premonition stuff, I believe, when you find certain things. In this one, the guy in between chapters is, I forget his name, Peter Stormare. He's like your shrink. And then you see how that goes as well within the game. But it's cool. The motion capture is nice. It looks good. It's a pretty creepy game as well, actually. I didn't find Man of Medan creepy. I liked all of them, but that one I didn't find creepy. Even Little Hope was creepier, but not overly. House of Ashes I didn't find creepy at all. The Devil in Me was actually pretty creepy, and The Quarry has its moments, but it's not overly creepy. This one, though, is actually very creepy. I definitely check it out if you haven't, if you're into those kind of games where it's like playing a movie. You like playing a movie. It's pretty much what they're getting at in this. Until Dawn. And the third PS4 game I have here, I have 3 Switch games as well, is Stray. This one says it's upgrade available for PS5. I would assume the other ones are too, but it was just before. They came out before. I don't know. Maybe not. Actually, maybe not on Final Fantasy, because didn't they like make a special version for the PS5 and like the PC? It was a little extra stuff. I don't know. Stray, it's the cat game here. You use this cat. I forget his name. I don't even know if I had one actually. I threw this game in here because this is a good change of pace game. I reviewed this and stuff. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, as they say. I liked it because you use the cat. It's like a post-apocalyptic world. You're in this, like, almost covered up from the sun, like, city. And then you find out throughout the game why they have a city. There's slum parts of it, and then people lived up in this other area. You find stuff out, and then the shit got down there, too. And there's all robots everywhere now. And, you, as the cat, you're like hanging out with your other cat buddies outside the thing, and then you fall down this pipe type thing, and you end up in there. Then you meet this guy who put his consciousness into a little robot. You hang out with him, and then you get this backpack. And you're just running around. You can meow, you can scratch stuff, you can sleep. You can knock stuff down, all the tables and stuff. The cat looks good. It's a pretty good looking game. It's not long, unfortunately. It's not that long. There's some sections where there's these weird, I forget what they call them, these little creature things. Try to get you. I think you can blast them with a light or something. I forget. But you have to try to figure out how to get out of there. And then you find out what happened inside the city. It was a cool change of pace. You can do certain stuff, get collectibles, you can find stuff. For some of the robots, want you to do some stuff for them. And it's just, it's really cool. I don't know, I really liked it. It was a different game. I mean, I like cats, but if the game sucked, I wouldn't have liked it. It's just, I don't know, it was a nice change of pace. It was a fairly relaxing game. You know, and sometimes you just like a change of pace, and this was what that was. There's the guy, I forget what the little thing's called, the robot. And he's getting chased by one of those things. And the robots want to figure stuff out too, and they're scared, or they're afraid because the things will attack them. But it's a cool game. A little different, but like I said, it's a nice change of pace. Not too long, though, unfortunately. And the next 3 are Switch games. The first one I grabbed is an RPG by Square Enix, Octopath Traveler. I've not played the second one. I know it's out. This game has an awesome look. It's like 16-bit character models with a really cool art style for the game world and the towns you go into stuff. Octopath Traveler is these 8 people. You can start with whoever you want, and then you start to come across the other people who all have special abilities. It's a turn-based RPG. The special abilities will come into play into combat and stuff like that. I just love the look of this game. I did a gameplay on this, I believe. When was it? Actually, it would have to have been after 2020. Well, it could have been maybe early 21. I filmed it in Massapequa. I was staying out there at the time. I was helping my aunt with something, so I just stayed over. But it's actually really cool, and there's different paths you gotta find around the game world. It's a cool looking game. Actually, I can see. I got a receipt in here. I paid $45. When did I buy it? 8/1/20. Oh wow! So I got this the day we got the system. I must have purchased this. We got like 5 games the day we got the system. Really cool game though. That's a cool. If you're into old school RPGs, you're gonna want to get this. Second game is Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. This is a remake of the Game Boy, and then it came on the Game Boy Color. The game is it has such a cool art style. It looks cool. This is another almost throwback. It's got the tap down look. You're running around a cool world. Zelda games always have that sense of achievement when you do something. Oh, I got a new item. I can access this area now. The Zelda games still do that the best, in my opinion. Of making you feel like you accomplished something. Now you move on. The structure of the games is great. This one, Link like wakes up. His ship, he's out in the ocean. His ship gets destroyed. He wakes up on a weird island, and there's an egg in the mountain. I forget who you gotta release or something. The sunfish or is that what it is? Doesn't tell you. You could actually make dungeons in this too. I never did it. That's the thing. You go into different dungeons, and then you use the weapons you get, items you get to get through there. You're just exploring. It's got the classic Zelda enemies. This also has Super Mario enemies in it, like Chomps pop up and a few other things, I think. I don't know why they did that. I guess they were just having fun. But I just love the look of it, and I just love... Because once again, it's almost a throwback, too. It has that throwback vibe to it while still having a cool look. And the gameplay still holds up. That kind of gameplay that the original Zeldas did. The first one, the second one to an extent, even though that was more of a side-scroller. Link to the Past. It has that feel. It's awesome. It's still, that gameplay still holds up. Definitely check it out. But you probably have. And the third one's a little bit of a different one. I've talked about this a bit. Spirit Hunter, Volume 2, right? NG. The first one is actually mentioned this one. The first one's Death Mark, and I've said it before. I think they're making a third one, but I don't know if it's going to come out here. You play as this kid. I forget his name, but your little cousin gets like kidnapped by this kind of supernatural entity. And you have some friends in this one. I think characters can die in this. I have not had any die. But it's a graphic novel game with not a ton of gameplay in it. I like Death Mark better than this one because Death Mark's actually legitimately creepy. This one kind of is too, but it has urban legends and stuff in it. This is one of the enemies you fight here. But you have to do certain things to take out the boss. When you do it, you have to pick certain choices and use certain items. And some places you go to, you can bring only certain characters you're with can access a certain area. There's a lot of dialogue. This is another game that's not going to be up everyone's alley. And you can do this judging thing for some reason. Some people ask you questions and you could like give them an answer. I don't know if it plays into anything. I actually got this before I got the system. I knew we were getting it, but I would have gotten this. I ordered this 7. Actually, it would have come after. I ordered it before. It shipped on the 29th. I ordered it the 28th. July 28th, 2020. It's $26. If you like this, Death Mark is also, so I'll recommend that as well. Death Mark is also on the Switch. It was originally a PSP game, I think. Not PSP, Vita. I have it on the Vita. That one, like I said, is creepier, and that one's a little bit different of the gameplay. So there's a little bit different of the limited gameplay. But you're, like, say you go into an area and you can go certain ways, and you could go to certain areas. Oh, you come across a little building, go in there, go this way, you find stuff, and there's little things happening, creepy things happening, and you come across the boss enemies that are usually like urban legend type things. And you're trying to find your cousin, because I forget what happens, what the thing's gonna do to her, I forget. I think these are the 4 people you can use. Maybe this guy here as well, I can't remember. But definitely check this out, and Death Mark as well. I have a couple other graphic novel type games for the Switch I haven't played enough of, like Root Film, which is actually kind of interesting. And something other ones like Tokyo Twilight Ghost Hunters I have on the Vita is similar, but that's a little bit more like strategy, weird strategy as well. The game. But anyway, that is just a request here for some underrated games talking about, and some recommendations for a dual request, recommendations for the Switch and the PS4. But thanks for checking this out, and have a good day.